Welcome to the July session of the Daring to Learn webinar series. My name is Alaina Boyd. I am an extension specialist with the University of Tennessee in the Center for Profitable Agriculture. This is a recurring webinar series from UT Extension from the Center for Profitable Agriculture. If this is your first time on Daring to Learn, welcome. If you are returning, welcome back. Today's session is going to cover YouTube Studio Basics for publishing video content. So I'm going to walk you guys through creating a YouTube account, uploading a YouTube video, and some of the specific tools and things that you can do inside YouTube Studio. As just a couple of housekeeping things, you guys can drop things into the chat box throughout the session. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop those into the chat. There's also a Q&A feature. You can raise your hand. There's several different ways to kind of get a hold of me as we move through this session if you guys have a question. And I can also turn your microphones on if there's like a specific question where you need to ask that verbally. If it makes more sense to do that rather than to try to pop that into the chat, I can turn your microphone on as well, so we can get that handled. So we will go ahead and start to try to move through these slides. One other quick thing that I wanted to mention before I do that, and I apologize for the back and forth. If you are a Tennessee producer that has joined us and you are looking for that Tennessee Agricultural Enhancement Program credit, TAEP, that's only available for our Tennessee producers. Participating in at least 5 of this year's Daring to Learn sessions. So watching a session and filling out an evaluation form for those qualifies you for one special education requirement for that application B, producer diversification section of the TAEP cost share program. So if you're one of our Tennessee producers looking to get that TAEP educational credit out of this, there is an evaluation form at the end of the webinar. That's where you guys will record your attendance for today and leave back about the session. So with all that kind of behind us, we will go ahead and get started, or try to. All right. So I'll skip kind of this little bit of about me. As I mentioned, my name is Alaina Boyd. I'm an extension specialist with UT Extension. I will share a little bit about you or about the center with you all. So the Center for Profitable Agriculture is a partnership between UT Extension and the Tennessee Farm Bureau. We also work very closely and cooperatively with the Tennessee Department of Agriculture. So anytime you're involved in any of our CPA programs or see our flyers for things out in the wild, you'll see this UT Extension logo on that because we are part of Extension. These are some familiar and friendly faces that you guys may have encountered out in the wild before at CPA programs. These are some of our current value-added team, including some newer extension specialists and staff. And just a little bit of a disclaimer before we get into the meat and potatoes of this session. This is strictly for informational purposes only, so any kind of specific products, resources, programs, that sort of thing that we talk about, this is all for educational purposes only, and it's not an endorsement from the center or any of our staff. All right, so now we will move into a little bit more information specifically about YouTube. And I'll share with you all some of this foundational kind of history about YouTube as a social media platform. If you weren't aware, YouTube is actually considered a social media platform and has been for several years now. I think if you're kind of like me in the very beginning, you may not have necessarily thought, oh, YouTube is a social media channel. It is considered one. And YouTube is actually the #2 most visited website in the world. The only website that beats YouTube out in number of visits is its parent company, Google. So Google has owned YouTube for a number of years now, and that is the only website that has more views than YouTube. As of 2026, Hootsuite, which is a social media management platform, they actually rank YouTube as the #1 social media site worldwide. YouTube actually holds claim to being the #1 mobile app worldwide. We're not going to talk too terribly much about the YouTube mobile app today, really, if any at all. But it's important to know that you can access YouTube through a desktop, through the mobile app, that sort of thing. The neat thing with YouTube as a platform is that it is considered a global website, so it's used by all age groups, genders, and ethnicities worldwide. I think if you've been in any of my social media talks in the past, you have heard kind of a spiel I give about TikTok, where I mentioned that some try to shy you away from using TikTok because there's only young people on there. Same thing with YouTube. That is just certainly not the case. There are all age ranges and genders found on YouTube as a platform. Specifically, there are really heavy presence from Gen Z. So those are going to be for 20 somethings, millennials, which are now into your 30 somethings, into the early 40 somethings, and then our Gen X folks, so our 80s babies. There are lots and lots of Gen X users on YouTube. I have some more information about kind of those customer and consumer demographics in some of my other social media sessions, but we won't talk very deeply about that today. Just really quickly, I also wanted to share with you a history of YouTube. So YouTube as a platform has been around for a pretty long time. YouTube.com officially launched in 2005. Google acquired the company in 2006. By 2009, YouTube was reaching 1 billion views per day as a website. And fast forward several years into 2021, YouTube launched what is called YouTube Shorts. So this is their short form content platform that's built into YouTube natively. Think of it as like an alternative to Facebook or Instagram Reels or TikTok. This just allows YouTube creators to use short form content within kind of the YouTube ecosystem. And as of 2022, I know I mentioned on our first slide that Hootsuite listed it as the #1 social media platform for 2026. Lucian Software stated that as early as 2022, it was listed as the #2 social media platform out of all the other options. So we've talked a little bit about the history of YouTube and what YouTube does. Now I want to share with you, I want to make sure I didn't skip a slide. It's being silly. Yeah, okay. So the specific types of content on YouTube that we're going to talk about today, these include long form video, YouTube Shorts, which is that short form content that we've talked about already, and then live streaming. So YouTube has really evolved since its inception from 2005 to now to really be this dynamic content platform where that traditional horizontal long form video content, think videos that are longer than like 3 to 10 minutes, that do really in-depth storytelling, that has been kind of the bread and butter for YouTube for many, many years. That is still very, very prevalent, but now YouTube, in an effort to try to compete with other short form content platforms like TikTok, they have introduced YouTube Shorts. So this short form vertical content, and by vertical content we mean like up and down. You watch it on a cell phone rather than like on a computer. That vertical short form content is becoming really popular, and live streaming is another option that has grown over the last several years through YouTube. This allows YouTube content creators to stream live from wherever they are directly to the platform so that folks can watch those videos in real time. And so this next slide gives us kind of an overview again of that long form versus the short form content that I've been talking about. I kind of want to go through this with you guys before we get much deeper into some of these slides. And I think predominantly what we're going to talk about today in this session is just kind of a crash course or an intro to YouTube Studio, is going to hit more heavily on this long form video content because that's the traditional YouTube content that you post from like a desktop computer, where with the short form content, you would use that through the YouTube mobile app. So long form content, like I mentioned, this is typically like horizontal video. I've got the little icon here of the little YouTube player to kind of symbolize that. As I mentioned already, this is content that's within 3 to 10 minutes in length, so it's longer, where short form content is typically like 60 seconds or less. Long form video content is used for more detailed or in-depth storytelling. So think like vlogs, travel videos, gardening videos, how-tos, any kind of reason that you would watch a traditional YouTube video kind of falls into that long form content, where short form content has become really popular with the rise of specific social media platforms. It's geared more towards being watched on like a smartphone, and again, that less than 60 seconds. The whole purpose of short form content is you engage the users quickly. And YouTube now has kind of upped the time limit for short form video content to be less than 180 seconds, but ideally, short form is going to be like less than a minute. So this moves us into YouTube versus YouTube Studio. And I want to walk through these differences with you guys as we start to talk about this. So there is a difference between YouTube and YouTube Studio, even though they're kind of one and the same. So YouTube is going to be the front end of the YouTube website. So if you go to youtube.com, anyone and everyone can go to youtube.com and watch videos and content on that site for free. YouTube Studio is what we think of as like the back end where content creators who have a Google account can create a channel, upload content, view specific content analytics, and do other things from within the YouTube Studio. That distinction is really important because I feel like this is skipping slides. I'm so sorry, guys. This feels really disorganized, and it's just this new desktop computer. So I feel like a slide is hiding from me, but I'm just going to talk through that caveat about the Google account here with you guys. So it's important to mention that YouTube Studio content creators use a Google account. I mentioned earlier that Google acquired YouTube in 2006. It is written into the terms and service of YouTube that you cannot have a full service or full functioning YouTube account without having a Google account because they're one and the same. So same thing with like a Gmail or Google Docs or anything like that. You have to have a Google account to be able to use these more in-depth features. So if you want to create content online and publish to YouTube, you have to create a Google account. This is what the home page looks like for YouTube. So if you just go to youtube.com, it takes you to something similar to this. Now, notice this screenshot, I actually am looking at the channel for the Center for Profitable Agriculture. This little icon over here in the top right corner, that shows me that I'm signed in to my YouTube account. But when you go to youtube.com, it will look something like this. There's always going to be this kind of dashboard or panel of things on the left-hand side of the screen. And then your other content is going to show up on the right-hand side of the screen. And this is what the studio dashboard looks like. Let me, I see. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is what that studio dashboard looks like once you get into YouTube Studio. So just showcasing the difference between youtube.com as a homepage and YouTube Studio. So we've talked about a couple of these things with YouTube already. I've thrown out this word channel a couple times. What exactly is a YouTube channel? So, a YouTube channel is what we think of like your page on YouTube. So, if you're familiar with Facebook or Instagram or other social media channels for your farm businesses, your YouTube channel is going to be your specific farm business's page on YouTube. Um, that caveat that I mentioned about Google accounts, users who have a Google account are able to subscribe to your YouTube channel. That way, they get notified when new videos are published. They're able to watch your content, leave comments, that sort of thing. It promotes audience engagement and interaction in that way. Channels are also a really great way to serve as kind of your home base or hub for all of your content on YouTube. So, the example that I'm using here is the UT Institute of Agriculture's YouTube channel. This is kind of what that landing page will look like. So there's always going to be a banner. And then, of course, the name. YouTube channels have usernames in the same way that like Facebook or TikTok or Twitter accounts, now called X, have usernames. So you see this at UTIA.com, that's going to be their username, a profile picture. And notice that on this screenshot, I was signed in to YouTube when I made this screenshot. So it shows that I'm subscribed to UTIA's YouTube channel. So that's a little brief about the differences between YouTube channel, YouTube.com, and then YouTube Studio as a tool. So how can we start using YouTube Studio? I've talked a little bit about this already. This is where that slide was hiding from me. So as I mentioned, anyone and everyone can go to youtube.com and watch videos on YouTube without an account. That caveat we mentioned about creating content and publishing with YouTube Studio, you have to have a Google account through Gmail to be able to create a YouTube account. There are personal and business account options when you create that Google account. There's some blurb on here about the terms of service from YouTube that outlines what you can and can't do with those YouTube accounts. So just keep in mind, without a Google account, you will not be able to use all the features of YouTube, including creating a YouTube channel. So over these next couple of slides, I'll walk you through how to create a YouTube account if you don't have one already. So it's pretty simple. You're able to open youtube.com in your preferred browser. On the left-hand side of the screen, on that panel that we've talked about already, you will click on this blue sign in button. So after you click sign in, this new page down here will open, and that's going to prompt you to sign into your Google account if you have one. If you don't have one, this is where you can click create an account down here, this little blue thing, and follow those prompts to create that account. So if you are looking to create a Google account for your farm business, notice when you click create an account, this is again found at the bottom of that sign-in page. There are 3 different options for Google accounts. Assuming you're going to choose for my work or business, you would click that, follow Google's prompts at that point to create a Google account and a Gmail email address in order to sign in to YouTube. These screenshots down here on the bottom just kind of outline the options that are available to you for Gmail. And from then you can move into creating a YouTube channel. So that Google account has to be activated in order to create that channel from within youtube.com. Once you get signed in with that Google account, then you can click the prompt to create a channel. The filling out that information is pretty short and simple. You'll see the screenshot over here on the right-hand side of the screen. So you can upload your profile picture for your channel there. If you have a logo of the farm or the business, or like a picture of a sign or something like that, you would upload that there, fill out the name, and then that handle is what's going to be your username for your YouTube channel, and you would fill that in there. And then once you get that information complete, you click create channel. There are several different ways to customize your YouTube channel in YouTube Studio, once you get that created, this is a screenshot of what that looks like. You'll find this under the customization tab from inside your YouTube Studio account. So notice there's several things you can do. Your banner image, you can change and remove that here. They have size guidelines for the amount of pixels that you need to use. Your profile picture, you can change your name. Note that you can only change the name of your YouTube channel twice in 2 weeks. And your handle or your username, so that at whatever your channel is, at Center for Profitable Ag, you can change your handle twice within a 2 week period, and they will hold your previous username for 14 days in case you decide you don't like it and you want to switch back. But that's just a little bit about the channel customization. So now you are ready to move forward and create your very first YouTube video. Once you move through the process of getting a Google account, creating your channel, now you're at this step. So inside your YouTube dashboard, whether this is youtube.com or you're in the actual YouTube Studio dashboard, as long as you are signed in, there will be this gray create button. So when you click on this create button, you're going to see these three options. The option to upload a video, go live, or create a post. These next several slides, pretty much the bulk of the rest of this video is going to be talking about just uploading a video to YouTube Studio using a desktop computer. We won't have time to go in depth on uploading from a mobile device or a smartphone, but the concepts are really similar and the same. Just note that these next several slides and the screenshots will be using a desktop computer. So we're going to click that upload video button. This is what it's going to look like from your home page on YouTube once you're signed in. So note we've got our little profile picture here that shows I'm signed in. We want to click that gray create button. Then after we click that create button, this screen is going to pop up. So you're going to see this little window that says upload videos, and it's asking you to drag or drop video files to upload. YouTube Studio lets you upload up to 15 video files at a time. I typically don't do that, especially like for using Daring to Learn as an example. When I get finished with this live webinar session today and my MP4 file is ready, I will go to YouTube, upload it, and just do a single video at a time. It's really important to make sure that you are using the correct file formats when you're uploading to YouTube. So this .mp4 is one option. That's a video file format. There are several other file formats listed that YouTube accepts, but note that, say if you're editing your video in some kind of like third-party editor, Adobe Premiere Pro, something like that, you cannot upload like a Premiere Pro file to YouTube Studio. You will have to export that video to an MP4 file or some other .mov as an option, video file format, and then upload that to YouTube Studio. There's a full listing of the accepted file formats via YouTube Help. I've got a link to that on the bottom of this slide. So after you select the file that you're going to upload to YouTube Studio, you will see what I'm calling this the details page for your video. So this screenshot here on the right of a similar screen to this will pop up. Note that whatever you have named your video file, that's going to automatically populate in this title under the video details. So if you name your video file something kind of like I've done here, this April 25 visual branding. This is an old video file from a Daring to Learn session last year that I used just to kind of walk through these examples. But you're probably not going to want to name the video whatever the video file name is, so keep that in mind. You will have to fill out that title. From there, you can fill out the description. There's lots of really neat things that you can do in the description of the video. You can mention other channels by tagging them, similarly to the way you would in like Instagram or TikTok, using that @ symbol. Inside the description, you can create chapters by actually like typing out say the very first chapter of your video is like an introduction. You would put 0 minutes, 0 seconds. There's a specific way to type that out, but you can block out specific pieces of the video to create chapters within the description. And then if you have a designated playlist for the video, you would select that playlist here in this option. One other thing that I want to share with you as we kind of talk through this. When you upload the video, it's automatically going to be assigned a YouTube link from YouTube. So see this in blue on the right-hand side of the screen. That blue link, you can open it at any time while the video is uploading, but a screen will pop up. It will say that the video is not ready yet, that sort of thing, while it's finishing uploading and moving through all of the checks and that sort of thing before YouTube makes it public. So while the video is uploading and those things are running in the background, there are several other pieces of the details section that I want to talk with you about while that video is preparing to be published. One other important piece on the details screen that I wanted to share with you is something called a thumbnail. So you'll see on this side of the screenshot here, it's prompting you to pick a thumbnail to assign to your video. All that this thumbnail is, that's the image or the icon that's going to be displayed for a video on YouTube. So if you're scrolling through CPA's YouTube channel, you'll see kind of the still pictures or the landing page for Daring to Learn sessions. Those are what we use as the thumbnail. There's no right or wrong necessarily for that. You can upload a thumbnail if you have one. Maybe it's like a picture from a video, or you've created something in Canva or otherwise to use. YouTube can also select a thumbnail for you. That's an option. And one other neat thing that they offer is A/B testing. If you have listened to our Meta Business Suite Basics session, Meta does some similar A/B testing for social media. This is just a way for YouTube to kind of run an A/B test for you to determine which thumbnail might do better with your viewers. But I typically just upload the file straight from the chat. Looks like I got some stuff in here. Oh, no, okay. All right. So that's a little bit about thumbnails. This next slide is touching on playlists. So the concept of a playlist is pretty straightforward. If you guys have ever kind of searched through the playlist for Daring to Learn before from CPA's YouTube channel, you kind of have an idea of how that works. Playlists allow content creators to kind of keep track of, organize, and manage related videos all in one place. It also makes sharing a group of videos that are similar with people, it makes that easier. So all of our Daring to Learn YouTube videos since we started this webinar session are housed in the same playlist. You can see the screenshot is from CPA's YouTube channel. We have lots of playlists on our channel because we've had lots of things over the years that we've had multiple videos for. So if you have a playlist, once you are to the point where you're uploading a video and getting ready to publish that, you can select your playlist here from this drop-down list, or you can create a brand new playlist directly from within this details page while your video is uploading on YouTube. So you would just click new playlist and fill out the information, and it would assign it to that playlist. Audiences, this is another section under the details page that I felt was really important to talk to you guys about. And a lot of these things can be kind of confusing because there's lots of buttons to click on this details page. And if you don't necessarily know what to do with them, it can be kind of frustrating. So this audience section, the whole purpose of this is because YouTube creators are required to comply with what's called the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. And there may be other laws depending on like your state or wherever you are. Anyway, long story short, YouTube content creators are required to disclose to YouTube whether or not the video that they're making is made for kids. This screenshot is, of course, from a mock video that I was uploading for the purpose of this webinar. But by default, I mark no on all of the center's YouTube videos. We are, as extension professionals, we work with adult audiences. We don't work with youth audiences, so our content is not made for kids. I would encourage you to make that decision based on who the primary target audience is for your content. If you are a farm business and your target audience is going to be adults who are purchasing your products or that kind of thing, and you're not making any sort of like educational content for children, I would mark no, it's not made for kids and move on. So just kind of keep that in mind. This is an option that you will have to answer. There are more advanced age restriction details housed under this video details section. So if you click age restriction under the audiences, this drop down of things opens up. So this is where you can disclose to YouTube whether or not you engaged in any paid promotions, whether you used generative AI or artificial intelligence to either generate any kind of the content in your video or to edit your videos. So you do have to disclose that about AI usage in the video. That's under this age restriction. And you can also add collaborations with other channels or other content creators from within this section. If you guys have ever used Instagram and you've used the collaboration tool within Instagram, it's pretty similar to that. You're not required to do the collaboration at all. You're not required to have any paid promotions at all or required to use artificial intelligence to create your content. But if you do any of those things, you just have to disclose it to YouTube. And this is where you would do that. Further down under those details section, we are moving on. There is a place for automatic chapters, featured places, automatic concepts, and tags. So this is a way for YouTube to help you create, in the case of automatic chapters, key moments, what they call key moments, or specific chapters. YouTube will do that for you rather than where I mentioned that you could do that inside the description of the video on your own. You can allow YouTube to do that for you. There's also a way to do featured places. YouTube will kind of automatically plug in places that are mentioned or featured in your video if you do that. That's more for, I would say, like travel vlogs or that sort of thing. I have tagged locations in some of our YouTube videos before as Columbia, Tennessee, but keep in mind that if you do that, that geographic information is shared publicly. So if you don't want somebody to know, if you want to post content and you don't want people to have that geographic location, there's no pressure or obligation to do that. These are all things you can toggle on and off from within that details section of the video. And then the automatic concepts, this is an experimental feature that generates concepts mentioned in the video. It may put those in the description. And then tags can be helpful, kind of as this blurb mentions, if there's anything that gets misspelled in the video. I have never used tags in the center's YouTube videos, but there's no right or wrong for that. If you want to put those in there, that's an option. Just note that you need to put a comma after each tag to separate those. Language and captions. Again, this is all under that details section of your uploading video while YouTube is processing things in the background. They're doing their copyright checks, that kind of thing. This languages and caption certification, this will ask you to provide the language that the video is using. So for us here in Tennessee, we are probably almost always going to be using English. If you're using another language like Spanish or French or Arabic, change that language under the video language drop-down tab to reflect that. And then this caption certification, that's going to ask you a question like, has this content ever aired on television in the United States? That kind of thing. For us, for Daring to Learn, of course, our recorded sessions have never been aired on television. So I choose that every time. But there may be an instance where you have a video that has been featured like on the local news, or it's been featured somehow online. Um, that is where you can kind of disclose that. And then the recording date and location, that's pretty straightforward as well. If you choose to mark the date that the video was recorded, you can do that there. And then the location, like I mentioned, I have tagged Columbia, Tennessee in some of our videos in the past. You don't have to do that, but that's where you can fill in that information. YouTube licenses, again, under that details section still. This part is pretty important, and I want to draw your attention to this concept of YouTube licenses. For every single video that you upload in YouTube Studio, YouTube will ask you which type of license you want to apply to that video. The standard YouTube license is most common. There is a second option called Creative Commons. So if you use this Creative Commons attribution license, that lets any other YouTube user to be able to reuse your video because the Creative Commons is meant to do that. It allows folks to basically take your video and then use pieces of it for their own content. So keep that in mind. You do have to pick your YouTube license every time. There's also an option here under this section to allow embedding. So to be able to embed a YouTube video, this would be something where if you wanted to have a video to play automatically on your website, if you're putting together PowerPoint slides, that kind of thing, that's what embedding is for. And then if you publish the video to your subscriptions feed and notify your subscribers, these are like your followers on YouTube. If you want to notify those subscribers every time that a video publishes, you click that here under this section. On this YouTube licensing section, it automatically chooses standard YouTube license every time. It automatically allows for embedding and then the publish to subscriptions feed. So unless you want to change that or turn those things off, you don't necessarily have to click anything here. Shorts remixing is another option under this details section. So Shorts, as I mentioned, is kind of a newer feature in YouTube Studio that allows for that short form content. By default, YouTube has the choice to allow video and audio remixing for shorts automatically selected under the details section of your uploading video. If you do not want other content creators to be able to remix or use that video or audio that you upload in their own YouTube shorts, select don't allow remixing. Otherwise, similarly to TikTok, folks can use the audio that you have uploaded over their own videos. They can use your video and part of their own videos, that sort of thing. So be mindful of that. And if you don't want that to happen, make sure to click don't allow remixing. Comments and ratings, these are one of the last things that you'll see under this details section while your video is uploading. So YouTube allows for folks to go to a video, leave comments. They can like it. There used to be an option for people to dislike a YouTube video. They've done away with that. That's not a thing anymore. So all that folks can do is either like it or leave comments. Now, there are some tools that can help you kind of moderate comments on YouTube. There's this drop down section here for moderation, and you see these options. So for our videos, we select basic to hold potentially inappropriate comments for us to go in and review those. There are stricter options or the option to hold all of them. You can also turn commenting off completely if you choose to do so, or restrict or change who can comment on your videos. There's also an option to toggle the like count on your videos on and off. So if you don't want people to see how many likes you have on a video, you can turn that off under this section of the details page. So that wraps us up on that details section of an uploading YouTube video. This now moves us into what YouTube calls video elements inside YouTube Studio. So your video is still uploading, buffering, processing in the background. YouTube is doing all the behind the scenes magic that they have to do to check and process and approve content being uploaded to their site. From here, this is where you can add your subtitles. If you have, say, a Zoom recording, like for Daring to Learn, we are able to upload the subtitles for this video because Zoom creates a transcript. And I upload that text file here on this page. Now, if you don't have captions or anything automatically generated for the video, YouTube can do that for you, or you can type them out yourself. I would caution you about the subtitles and the captions. Sometimes, not every time, but sometimes the automatic generation of subtitles from YouTube is imperfect, which of course it's AI generated. So like with all things with AI, it's not always going to get it right. So I would encourage you to double check those if you use the automatically generated subtitles. Same thing with like TikTok and other platforms. There are times where it just doesn't get it right. So kind of keep that in mind. You can also add an end screen here. That's where you can promote some related content at the end of the video. Is an option to add cards. That's a feature where something like pops up on the screen during the video. This quizzes is new. I've never done that for a YouTube video. It is a new way to add interactive quizzes into your videos. And once you move past that video elements section, then you're going to move into what YouTube calls checks. So the whole purpose of this checks page inside YouTube Studio, this is where they're going to check the video for any issues that may prompt them to need to take it down. So copyright infringement, if you violate their terms of service with the video content, that kind of thing. This is where YouTube checks in the background to make sure you're in the clear to upload. And assuming all those things pass, then you move to this final stage of uploading your video called visibility. So you can actually change the level of visibility that you want your YouTube video to have on this section. You can save or publish it. You can schedule to publish it later. Our videos on the Center's YouTube channel are almost always public. So I choose public. And if you want those to be private, with private videos, that's where only people you allow to watch the video can see it. Unlisted YouTube videos will give you a link. And anyone with a link to that unlisted YouTube video can watch it. They just can't search for it online. It won't show up anywhere else. They have to have that link to be able to watch the video. Notice there's some little prompts down here about making sure if there are children in the video, that requires like other checks and that sort of thing that you would have to deal with. And it'll give you a little example or overview. So for this particular video file, it was like just over 49 minutes. The title, of course, I never changed the title from what I had named the video file, and then that YouTube link is shown here in blue. So once we are ready to go, our checks are done, our visibility, things are all handled, you're finally ready to publish your YouTube video. And down here at the little in the top or the bottom left, excuse me, the bottom left corner of the screen. So that's going to be below this gray box where it says before you publish, check the following. These things will show up on the bottom. So YouTube is assuring me the checks are complete. There were no issues found. I'm ready to click the black and white publish button and send this video out onto my YouTube channel. So once your video is published, you'll get this screen over here on the left. And I apologize, these are two screenshots on top of each other, but I was trying to show you all what that would look like. So this published video is going to look like this. It'll also show the date that it was published, the title of the video. You have all these options to share it to different social media platforms. There's the link. If you choose to utilize YouTube's promote feature, you can do that there. And this video will now show up in your YouTube studio under the content section, under channel content. So notice my visibility set to public. The date published was today, and there's the name of the video. I did not add a description. If I did have a description added for this video file, that would show up here. But this is what your published video is going to look like once you move through all those pieces that we've talked about, and this video has gone out into the world. Now, I uploaded this as a dummy video so that I could be able to show you guys how to delete a video from YouTube. Say that you accidentally upload the wrong video file, or you need to go back and edit something, or you need to take something out. You can delete videos from YouTube, but once you remove that video from YouTube, you cannot put it back. Deleting YouTube videos is permanent. You can't undo it. It's not like a Facebook post where it goes to like a trash can or a recycle bin where you can pull it back for later. So once you delete that YouTube video, it's gone forever. There is an option from within your channel content page from where you click delete. You can download that video first. So it will re-download the MP4 file or the movie file or whatever video file you're using. It will re-download that to your computer, and then you can delete it. Now, there are multiple ways to handle like your video storage, the organization of your files, that kind of thing. If this is handy because if you accidentally lose the original video file, you can re-download it before you delete it. But just keep that in mind. Deleting a YouTube video is permanent. You can't undo it. So really quickly, now that we've talked about the process of uploading a video to YouTube, some of the nuances and things related to that, I'm going to walk you guys through the YouTube Studio itself and talk through everything from dashboard down and kind of give you an example of what this YouTube Studio looks like. So this is what your YouTube Studio dashboard will look like. From here, of course, you see we've got this left-hand panel. Dashboard is highlighted, and then it's showing me all of these things. My published videos, my latest video performance. So this was the Daring to Learn session. At the time this screenshot was taken in May. So at the time, this was based on the latest video posted in May. As of that date, we had this many subscribers. Notice it shows you, I'm so sorry. It shows you how many subscribers that you've had added in the last number of days. It gives you a summary of your views and your watch time, a listing of your top content. This is really your landing page or kind of catch-all for your YouTube channel's content from within YouTube Studio. There are creator insiders, what's new in Studio, that kind of thing. This is just where YouTube is prompting you to kind of look at their helpful content for creators. From there, you can move back into your content page. So we've looked at this already. This is where your published videos will show up after you publish them. So under content, and that looks like this here, you can always see your number of views and comments on each video. Notice I've got my video titles and descriptions, and then the thumbnail under all of these. And then the timestamp. So this tells me like how long each video is. So at the time, the most recent video that I had uploaded was over 53 minutes. All that information is available here under the videos section. If you're doing shorts or live streams or anything like that, you can see those information there under shorts and live. There's information on playlists and other things all under this content tab. Your analytics. This is a specific section of YouTube Studio that gives you in-depth kind of analytics for your videos. Note that these things update in real time. So our center's YouTube channel, we don't have a whole lot of subscribers. They don't change very often in like a 24-hour period. But say you have a YouTube channel that gets really popular, there's this real-time live update of your top content, your views, your changes in followers, that sort of thing. You can also see your views over the last 28 days here. You can change that range with this drop down. There's an advanced mode. So there's lots of really helpful information for your YouTube channel under this analytics page. They've also got some AI generated prompts up here up top that it can kind of walk you through some things if you choose to do that. Here's a deeper look at some of the channel analytics. So this is at the time when I took this screenshot, this was CPA's top content within that 28-day period. You can kind of see that there. It shows an average view duration and then the actual number of views for each video. That real-time live updates that I mentioned, this is more information about that. So notice you can see these for like the last 365 days, lifetime, yearly. There are lots of really neat customization options for the analytics that YouTube Studio will show you. This is what that advanced mode looks like. It's pretty neat. It shows kind of this views by content, and notice this is based on the 5 top videos at the time when I was looking at this, and then you can see how those videos have trended over time and when people were watching those the most. So this one farmers market vendor bootcamp video was really popular across the month of April, and then it had a big spike towards like the middle of May of this year. That's kind of neat to see. Total watch time, subscribers gained because of these videos, just kind of neat. So that's the advanced mode. There's also what's called community in YouTube Studio. This is where you as a content creator can go in and see your most recent comments. Now, we don't get a lot of comments on our YouTube videos. So some of these are older, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And don't let yourself get discouraged if you don't get any comments or interaction on your video. That's okay, because you can still see other things like view time, subscriber, that kind of thing. There's more information out there for you to look at and kind of gauge your video success on rather than just the number of comments. And I talk a little bit about going viral in some of my other social media sessions. Please don't place pressure on yourself to go viral with YouTube content. Going viral is not sustainable, and I think you can still have really successful social media content and YouTube content without having like Beyonce level followers or having a million views on a video. As long as you're hitting your target audience every time and the content is related to your target audience, that's what's most successful, I think, in my opinion. So this rounds us out to a listing of resources for YouTube content creation. YouTube has what's called YouTube for Creators, and this is their dedicated resource page for folks that are making YouTube videos. There's lots of neat information on here. They have their policies and guidelines, helpful links. They have specific videos geared towards how do I create a channel? How do I upload a video? How do I do these things? All available on this Creators Hub. They also have a quick start guide to YouTube playlist that I think is pretty helpful. And notice if you go to YouTube and you just type in how to make a channel, you're going to be bombarded with videos from people that are not necessarily the YouTube creators. So keep that in mind when you're looking at these videos online. Look for this YouTube logo and the YouTube creators. They have official ways to like showcase that this is their legitimate channel rather than just somebody making helpful, content online. You'll see this little check mark there. So that quick start guide to YouTube playlist from the YouTube for Creators is really helpful. I would encourage you to take a look at that. It goes pretty in depth into a lot of things that I think would be helpful, and it is actually from the YouTube Creators team, which is like a legitimate, dedicated from YouTube team of individuals. And so that brings us to the end of this session, kind of right on time. For those folks that are left with us on the live, do you guys have any specific questions? Is there anything I can go back to and kind of go over? Um, while I'm giving you kind of a chance to type those questions out or bring those up if you have any. I will share. This is my contact information if you all need it at any time if you have questions or um, would like to kind of go over some of these things in depth again, there are several different ways you can get a hold of me. Um, I am also available for like firm visits or one-on-one consultations with producers who are looking for like social media help or things related to like YouTube, websites, that sort of thing. So always feel free to reach out to me at any time with any questions. And I will go ahead and pop up our attendance and evaluation form for those of you that are left with us on the call. And feel free, if you have questions at all, I'd be more than happy to answer those or go back to anything. I apologize for the technical difficulties at the beginning of the video. It was a little crazy and a little embarrassing. So sorry, guys, but we got through it and you stuck with me. So like I said, feel free. I can go back to anything we need to look at. If not, if you don't have any questions, this wraps up our session today, and you all are free to go. We will come back in August with a session from the UT Department of Animal Science. Dr. Liz Eckelkamp and Dr. Caitlin Zaring-Weir are going to give an overview of a milk bottling decision support tool. That's a budget tool that the Department of Animal Science has put together. So if you all don't have any questions, feel free to hop off and I will end our July session.